dots now, but they had two jets going side by side, jet track drivers, right down this pavement. So these two funny cars may get some pretty good grip. We're just hoping to hear somebody else light them up, gentlemen. Yep. Here we go. Here we go. Light them up. What does this do to your head, having to wait like this? You're strapped into the car once, you get out, you get in, you get out. What's it do to you?
Well, it's just the weight there. I mean, for me, I just get right out because I want to relax and not think about what's going on around me, the weather, whatever, and just concentrate on the race car. So I just go back and sit back in the truck and talk to my girlfriend or relax and go over what we expect in the future at the run there.
I just saw your girlfriend. I can understand why you do that.
Scusa smokes the hides. He forced and hopping to the longest burnouts in funny car. Tony Pendragon hoping that the near lane will be kinder to him than it was to his brother.
But in the same essence, that's one thing that's off his mind. He knows his brother's in good shape, physically, well-minded, so that was one thing he can eliminate from his brain trust, although I don't think it would have bothered him in the slightest. In the same essence, it is something he doesn't have to think about.
And here's something ironic. Should Tony Pendragon beat Dean Scusa, he would have a bye run because the McDonald's car can't come back. We're assuming his brother would give him the gift in the second round. Unbelievable. How ironic is that?
I am sure that's one of the first gifts that he's received from his brother in quite some period of time, except maybe since Christmas time at least.
I'm not sure about Christmas.
Those guys are so competitive between each other.
The body up on the Scusa car. Dean Scusa, likable kid, great family.
A win
hard.
A win looking for a place to happen. He's been runner-up 2 or 3 different times. The car performs just regularly. Just can't get any luck, and you got to have luck to win a drag.
And every time he's been to a final round, a car with Castro GTX on it put him out.
Exactly right. He's lost to both of them. Anytime you come up against one of these Castro cars, you've got your hands full.
Yep. John Medlin beats a hasty retreat in the Pendragon car. Running in his brother's 501 tracks. Woohoo! How about it? Dean Scusa, a 519 with, I believe, Sid, the best speed he's ever run in his life. 306 miles an hour for Dean Scusa. And what does that mean? It means that Scusa very likely will waltz his way into the Final Four.
You know, it's amazing. Well, let's watch this. They're going to do a replay for us, and let's watch this. Watch the driving job he does, because it does a wheels-up situation. He backpedals, jumps back in it. Nice, nice. In fact, a great driving job by Dean Scusa.
I said earlier today, and I meant it, it would take a teamwork between crew chief and driver. Right-hand side of your screen.
There you see it. The car's moving hard to the center line. He backpedals it to save it, and wow, jumps back
2 times.
Twice. Second time, and still runs a team. Very impressive.
Tony was never really in this one.
Nope, not at all.
And you know, Dean was keyed up there. You could tell by the reaction time that 473 light that he was wanting him back.
Yeah, he certainly was. And I'll tell you, he took it between the 2 last lights. He actually didn't run it out the back door.
Let's go down to the Ankh with the 306-mile-an-hour Cleveland Kid. We'll go down to Bob Uncover in just a moment. He thought he had Dean Scusa, but the slippery little rascal went to the rival TV show. Okay, let's try again. You got him, Unc?
Yeah, he's here with us now, Steve. Steve, I tell you what, 519, 306, you were hauling some speed on the big end.
Yeah, it was shaking all over the place. It almost wanted to go towards the center line there, but yeah, I mean, Ronnie made the right call. He said it might do it, and he told me, you know, he kind of briefed me that it might smoke the tires, and that's all I needed to know.
And they got you there.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Okay, up next, I believe we're going to see one driver in his first ever side-by-side race. That will be Corey Lee in the Pioneer, the Art of Entertainment car, owned by Tom Hoover, as we said, recuperating from surgery. Corey's tried to qualify. The car finally did. This will be his first race, Sid.
It certainly will. And I'll tell you, he did a great job because you got this qualifying. He ran his first run at nighttime the other day, and boy, I'll tell you what, he had his hands full. The first time you ever have one of those bodies closed down around you, it gets your attention when it's night because it gets real dark.
Gary Dencham redefines the word veteran. in the NEC communications car in the near lane. The 50-year-old school teacher from Bellflower, California, the Avenger body. A pair of Dodge Avengers. Look at this. Oh! Big supercharger explosion for Corey Lee. Gary Densham gets very loose and across the center line. That's an automatic disqualification. Both drivers hurt parts. Both drivers are lucky it wasn't worse.
Boy, that even scared me up here.
Let me tell you something, folks. If they had had the cameras on us, you'd have seen all three of us duck.
I am so glad that tally light wasn't on that camera, because Bruce Sarver, Sid Waterman, and Steve Evans tried to get under the desk. There just wasn't room for all three of us.
I'll tell you what, the cars leave together. A little bit of a problem at this particular point. Smoking the tires in the right-hand lane, and then all of a sudden, here we go down the left-hand side. Whose car? Going to be a violent backfire. There you see it, a drop piston or two, and boom, the big one.
Threw the whole ejector hat plumb off.
Right. That was Gary Densham, I'm sorry, in the far lane. Here we go from another angle.
You know, Gary pushed it a little farther than he would normally do because the track's so iffy right now. He wanted to stick with it to, if Corey did break.
Corey broke all right, spectacular fashion, but not quite soon enough. And this possibly is the case of a driver, well, I don't need to probably stay with it anyway, that doesn't recognize when it noses over that maybe you got to get out of it.
Well, you know, he might have recognized it. He might have recognized that it was nosing over, but the other guy wasn't there.
That's right.
You know, he doesn't know exactly what happened to Gary Densham back there, so going across the center line, so he's going to drive for all it's worth. And let me tell you, that is also Corey Lee's first blower explosion. And he did a very good job of handling the car afterwards.
That was the first time he ever had to leave the starting line, and he was okay. Densham was out a little bit on him, but not bad at all. With Lee Beard, your current crew chief, and he tells you, I don't know what he tells you. Let's first of all, let's go on down to Bob Uncover and have a look at the Pioneer car. Wow.
Well, the damage, as you can see on camera, extends from the nose all the way up through where the blowout panel burst, up into the windshield even. The windshield took a split. I mean, it was a very violent bang. I'm going to move over here and see if we can grab Corey Lee real quick. Corey, first off, you're okay, but that was a pretty good boom.
Yeah, it was a pretty good pop. It's a little bit bigger excitement than Disneyland has to offer, but I just want to thank everybody for helping me. And we need a little more help to get to our next event, but we're okay. And I just want to thank everybody, Pioneer and Mike's team.
You guys got another body?
Yeah, we have a body. We can repair this for next week. It's over this week, though.
You are done for this week.
Well, I'm not going to give up yet. Maybe not.
I knew it.
Spoken like a good true racer.
That's the call.
How many times I have heard a racer say, nope, that's it, we're all down here today. 10 minutes later, I go over the pit, there's 19 guys throwing parts. If he wants to quit, there's people that won't let him, Bruce.
Oh, I guarantee you, he'll have a lot of help, and he'll have some probably help from our guys, maybe some parts. He's helped me out before, and we'd be glad to help him, too. Great bunch of guys, Tom Hoover's team over there.
I've seen guys want to quit just out of, I don't want to spend any more money, I'm tired, I'm beaten. Here comes, guys start working on the car, say, what are you doing? We're fixing your car.
Yeah, absolutely right. I've seen on many occasions over the 30-something years that I've been in this business, and Corey is a great racer. He's a great crew chief, and took his first chance at driving, and he did a good job. I can't say. Yeah, look at that line across the. Look, appears like the Densham must have kicked a rod or something.
Overwound the motor.
Yep. Got oil underneath the tires, and that's why the thing made an abrupt left-hand turn and went across the center line.
Gary's too good and too conservative to have done that.
On purpose.
Yeah, just on purpose, absolutely.
Did you notice how Corey there was just plumb out of breath? Just the concussion from the noise and explosion probably took his breath away.
Hey, it took ours away.
Al Hoffman. He wants to race. He's been out of it since Gainesville.
And look at this guy on his right, Jimbo Ermolovich. What a great job he has done since he took over on this race car from Tom Anderson. This car consistently runs one of the fastest cars, 306, 310, 311, commonly running those kind of speeds, and very, very fast race car.
In our last pay-per-view race in Houston, we had absolutely no oil. Not one drop, not out of any category of car, from super stock to top fuel. And here we're getting, well, we got a few problems, but in case we do have some rain showers, you can pick up the final round coverage tonight, hopefully on ESPN2 at 10:30 p.m. This is all obviously barring weather. The Pennzoil Nationals highlights on ESPN. That's the post-produced show on Friday, May the 2nd at 12:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and that'll be seen again on May 6th at a more convenient hour, if you have a job, at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And the Sportsman race from here, the Federal Mogul action on ESPN2 with Bob Fry and Alan Reinhart, May 20th, with a replay on Wednesday the 21st.
I got a question for you guys. When they running these and we're having problems, getting the class all the way through, do they wait the full hour and a half, or before they run again? Are they going to run top fuel right behind these guys?
No, they'll have to be a full hour and 40 minutes
after the pro session.
Well, no, it would actually be after the last fuel car goes down the race course.
Well, I wonder if my crew chief's looking for me.
Well, you got to remember we still got pro stock to go.
Yeah.
Which we definitely will have before we have top fuel again. And there's 16 cars, and you're pretty fast. I bet you could run down there and make it.
Yeah. What I just hear in the PA with Bruce Sarver, please recount. Just kidding. Well, we got both lanes wounded here now, but let's take a look at the 1997 season so far in Funny Car. Pomona, well, it was all force, and his hometown track beat Al Hoffman in the final round, but tell you, Hoffman was game. He blew it up on Thursday and came back to get to the finals. Awesome performance. Force again over Dean Scusa in Phoenix. We were talking about that earlier. Scusa can't seem to beat a oil car that says Castrol on it. But down in Gainesville, Hoffman, the tough guy, and it was a tough way to win, smashing into the wall, on fire, upside down, straddling the guardrail, broken arm, beat Mart Oswald. Houston, Texas, well, it was Tony Pedregon up against his brother, and Tony took the nod for the John Force Castrol team. But at Atlanta, Randy Anderson, in only his 5th ever Nitro Funny Car race, defeated John Force, or John really beat himself more than anything else. And so that rounds out our winner and runner-up column in Funny Car. Right now, let's go down to Frank Hawley, who I believe has made his way over to the Kenny Bernstein pits. He has indeed. Frank?
Sometimes driving a top fuel race can be a lot of fun, but for Kenny Bernstein this year, it's been quite a challenge. You've told me that you've been a lot of tire shaking, a lot of off and on the throttle. This weekend, well, you bent the car yesterday on a wheel stand. You had an exciting first round. What's going on?
You're right, Frank. You said it, buddy. It's tougher to drive these things today than ever before, I believe. This tire shake problem, obviously, we all have it. We seem to be plagued with it maybe a taste more than others, but it's tough, and it's hard to make the right decision at the right time. But we were lucky yesterday that we didn't go over backwards and save the car, and my boys fixed it. The Bud King guys did a great job. And then that first round, that's just pure luck. I mean, that's one of those days that you got out of bed on the right side, I guess, because we were dead. We were beaten if the other car had just gone down the racetrack. And I guess you have to have those to win championships, don't you?
How many times you pedal the car?
On that last run, I quit counting in there while I go on the computer. I couldn't count the up and downs enough.
Were you waiting for him?
Oh, sure. You know, you're always thinking, here he comes, and you keep trying to squeeze back in it. You can't do it. There's no way. Finally, I said, the heck with it, and I just floored it and said, let it blow up or whatever. I mean, I can't do anything about it, but we were lucky, just lucky.
It worked out okay for you.
That's right, that time, but we got a tough one this next round with Selzy, and that's going to be a good battle between the two red cars, Winston and Budweiser. It'll be a good one.
In fact, it'll be a rematch of Atlanta, right? Bernstein and Selzy?
Yes, it will be. It certainly will be. Now, look at there, folks. You know, this is what happens when you get a lot of moisture on the racetrack. They are actually having to scrape all that rubber off the racetrack, because what does happen is the moisture gets underneath the tire, like Shelly Anderson, underneath the rubber, like Shelly Anderson mentioned earlier. And when that happens, they throw a lot of heat on it, then the water actually separates the rubber from the racetrack and actually creates a lot worse problem. But by the time they get done, that baby will be back in order and in real good shape. And one thing you guys never have to worry about, Bruce, is what the Safety Safari does for you.
Oh, yeah, they do a tremendous job. And you just look at what happened to Cruz. They were right there, and everything just worked out perfect. And it makes you feel good as a driver sitting back there knowing you're going to get there.
I wonder, with some of the high-tech lubricants and a lot of secret stuff in many ways that's going into these oils, if it's harder to clean up than it used to be. We knew it was just good old Pennsylvania or Texas crude.
Well, I will have to admit, Steve Gibbs has done a pretty extensive check into that. Has talked to several of the people, and actually did for a while a check with all the teams that had an oil down, and if they had an especially hard time cleaning up the oil, he would go right straight to that operation, find out what brand of oil they ran, if they ran an additive, what type of an additive there was, and I am sure that if it comes up too often with any particular something or other, there will have to be some changes made, because you've got to get this racetrack clean to be able to have a good race.
Let's take another look at some of our internet activity here, and this is from trying to figure this out here. Anyway, the question is, this is a request to go into the pit area and give us more exposure to the teams preparing the cars between professional rounds. We're trying to do that. Witness the hard work of Frank Hawley. This would include professional as well as sportsmen. Absolutely. Also, is it possible to show us reaction time, 60 foot, etc., as the run is in progress? I find this information interesting. It's more fascinating, actually, Jimmy Norris, than it is interesting. And that technology we have here in a little box, what they're trying to do, and I think we're not that far away from figuring out how to do it, is to slave this computer that has reaction time, 60 foot, 338 mile, everything you want to know, and somehow get it on that screen, both left and right lane. I know Billy McCoy and a lot of others, our director this weekend, Steve Gibbs, the CompuLink people, they're all trying to figure out how to do that where it is not a total distraction, though, to the action, because you have that fan that says, leave that stuff off the screen, So they're trying to come up, as Fox has found out with all of their trick hockey pucks and the Fox box, and we're trying to do that stuff, and it's not that far away, I promise you.
And it's not that easy. I mean, there's an awful lot to trying to run one of these things. And, of course, having been in the business I have all my life and now doing this commentary, I was never aware of what these guys had to go through. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is indeed. Here in just a few minutes, don't go away, we're going to show you some of the incredible qualifying in Top Fuel from Saturday. In the first pair up will be Eddie Hill and Paul Romine. And this is where Romine, I believe, finally gets into the show after the big wheel stand from earlier. Again, this is Saturday afternoon. Which session is this? Do we know? First session or second session?
Looks like the first session. He runs Eddie in the first session.
This be Saturday morning.
Paul Romaine's car there on the right-hand lane. Actually, the left-hand lane facing the cars. And Eddie Hill. Boy, what a trouble-plagued season this man has had. I started to say young. Gee, I wish he was young.
Well, he's
That'd make me a kid.
He's young at heart, just a tick over 60 years of age, and Eddie plans to race at least through the year 2000. You ever get a chance to race Eddie, Cruz?
Yeah, actually, he's my son's favorite driver, so we have every time me and Eddie's raced, I've beat him the 2 times, and Cole and him always get together and talk in Ursine, and so next time, keep Cole away, because...
Well, Paul Romine, who was alongside Eddie Hill in this Saturday morning qualifying session, a very, very successful businessman out of Indianapolis, and has a great friendship and professional relationship with Clayton Harris, one of the best drivers in the 70s, one of the best tuners and innovative thinkers in the fuel ranks. Clayton Harris, the wrench on that car.
He certainly is. He did some of the innovations and some of the trick clutches back in those days before we had timers. He had a hydraulic clutch system that let the clutch out slow. I mean, the guy was so far ahead of everybody with the New Dimensions Home Special with Jack McKay.
In the early 70s, Clayton Harris could not be beat, period. It was the John Force at Top Fuel of that era. So this time it was Paul Romine at 478 to get into the program, and he desperately needed to do that. Eddie Hill wasn't far behind at a 480 laps time in the Saturday morning qualifying session.
When I found out Paul here was out here racing, is kind of surprised me, because a few months back I was watching those two work together at Bakersfield at Nostalgia race, and you could tell that Clayton's his Nostalgia Top Fuel car was a little bit different sounding and performed different than it's down to more of the modern side. It was fun to watch that thing go down the track.
Look how beautiful the weather was yesterday. I want it back.
Yeah, it sure would be nice to have it right now.
Hey, we're lucky to be sitting here even doing what we're doing. Tommy Johnson Jr. and Corey Mack squared off in the morning session yesterday. The McDonald's car in the near lane. And Tommy Johnson Jr. is pretty much tuning this car, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He's been tuning it pretty much all along. He has a lot of good help from a lot of good people, but he doesn't really have a crew chief per se. Tommy Johnson Jr. is his own crew chief at this particular point.
Yeah, him and my clutch guy that worked for us last year, Ted Fashion, are calling the shots on that machine.
And Mike Green for
and that's how you get new crew chiefs. We talk about that. And I'll tell you, these crew chiefs, you talk about stress. I mean, I can't even imagine what these guys have to go through. It's stressful for the driver. He's along with the ride. It's more stressful for the crew chief, because he's got to get the car in the show so the driver can go down the race course. So it's a no-win situation for the crew chief, unless they win.
Oh man, in today's competition right now, I mean, there's 16 cars that are really could win at any given time.
Oh, if they're qualified sitting alongside you, they can whip you.
Oh, in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat.
The 60-foot times are critical in drag racing, and I think you'll notice here the difference between McClenathan and Tommy Johnson Jr. in 60 feet. It'll be about 0.03 of a second, but that's pretty huge.
Those guys that throw those big 60-foots out there, it's iffy on a start track like this, too, though.
Neither driver happy with the performance, with what they felt in the seat of their pants or the sound of the motors in that Saturday morning run. So Corey Mack and Tommy Johnson Jr. both just shut her down.
If you notice there, Corey threw the supercharger off that thing. They were trying a new supercharger, and it threw the supercharger off it.
And the other lane, Tommy Johnson dropped the cylinder, and he knew it wasn't on as good a run as he'd already made because he had run a 77 and a 73 during qualifying before that on Friday. So why waste the run or hurt the motor? He knew it wasn't going anywhere.
And next up, we got Pat Dakin and Kristen Powell. I say next up in retrospect. This was Saturday morning's qualifying. Big crowd on hand. It's a beautiful racetrack. Pat Dakin is quite simply an animal. An absolute animal. He put a sticker on my rent-a-car one time at the U.S. Nationals. I drove around for a whole week with a giant sticker that says, "Follow me to the gay bar." Kristen Powell, the Royal Purple car. Her father, Casey Powell, now super successful in the computer industry, was a drag racer himself on the East Coast in the 60s and 70s.
Me and Pat been going back and forth. This particular race car was supposed to be mine, and we were pressing to get a race car that the older car we had, and Pat wasn't in a real big hurry, so we got his race car. And so we've been going back and forth kind of. So when he brought this black thing here today, I said, "Oh, you finally got my race car, huh?"
And what a difference new pipe make.
Oh man, it's I didn't really know because I never drove any other one than the Swindle I have, but it was night and day.
Kristen Powell just recently was accepted at the college of her choice, the same college her sister Carrie goes to up in the Oregon area. I'm really delightful about that, and they're hoping that school will work with them a little bit around, her schedule and the curriculum. It might take a year longer, but she wants to race, but more than anything, she wants a college degree.
Good for her.
Yep, Mike Klober, the crew chief for Kristen Powell, the Royal Purple car. Team manager Jim Epler. Team owner now is Andy Evans. In fact, they'll be moving to Indianapolis, relocating all of this, and ultimately, hopefully, have their own huge shop in Las Vegas.
Well, that facility he has there, we've been by there.
Well, Pat Dakin in this qualifying effort was a little too strong for Kristen Powell. Dakin carted a 477 to Powell's 487, but Kristen getting more and more seat time in that car. And she's a delightful young lady to be around and is maturing into a pretty proficient race car driver. Well, only one Coletta made it to Richmond. If you tuned in late, Connie Coletta has kind of decided to take a little sabbatical. He's not quitting. Just wants to take some time away to spend with his huge American International Airways business and Coletta Flying Services. And I think he just needed a break from it. It was just too much to try to do everything. Plus, his back had been hurting a little bit. And then neither car qualified at Rockingham for the Winston Invitational. Then Scott didn't qualify 2 weeks ago at Atlanta. And Dick LaHaye hadn't been feeling well, and he decided he wanted to leave. And so Connie just said, "Ace, take this kid of mine, go out, have a good time, and see if you can win a doggone drag race."
It's the same old thing like we were talking about a few minutes ago. The pressure on these crew chiefs. Dick LaHaye has not had a very good year this year. Had a moderate year last year, and after winning 2 championships in a row, he's extremely disappointed, and it gets to your health.
Yeah,
it will mentally affect you, and which will inevitably be a physical affection. So you got to give him a lot of credit for just backing out of it a little bit. Doesn't say he's going to quit totally, just saying he's taking a little bit of a sabbatical, takes time off, and we'll hear more from Dick LaHaye, I'm sure.
Well, hopefully, after this pair, we will come back, give you kind of a funny car update, and bring you the next pair live here on NHRA Broadcasting Pay Per View. As in the meantime, you take a look at Scott Coletta and Mike Dunn on Saturday morning. The conditions were really pretty good yesterday morning.
Well, they really were, but the thing is they'd had 2 days. The 2 days before, they really struggled, but they found out how to make the power. They could make the car, accelerate off the starting line pretty good. But then you start getting in trouble out there about 400 or 500 feet out, and it's just so easy to make horsepower. Especially like yesterday, the humidity was only 27%. The barometer was way up. I mean, it just was so easy to make horsepower.
On Friday,
awful tough to put it to the ground. Actually, Friday and Saturday were both the same way weather-wise.
Well, with Scott Coletta off the mark first, started to haze the tires. Mike Dunn drove around him. It didn't matter, it just qualified. But it was done at a 478 and Coletta at a 483. And hi, everybody, again. Bruce Sarver, Sid Waterman, Steve Evans, still at it. And we're going to stay with it as long as this track stays dry and there's any glimmer of running race cars down out here at the Pennzoil Nationals in Richmond, Virginia. Here's our funny car ladder. John Force has already put away Mr. Bolger. Here's Pedregon. Well, he beat Whit Bazemore but lost the war as it caught on fire and smacked into the wall. Dean Scusa beat Tony Pedregon and may be the recipient, I say maybe, of a bye run in the Final Four if the McDonald's car can't come back. From what we saw, it ain't coming back.
I don't think so.
Other half of the ladder, Ron Capps. There's another story in the making. Capps smacked the wall after the finish line. That doesn't disqualify, but the car was hurt pretty good as he beat Higley. Randy Anderson and Al Huffman yet to come. Chuck Etchells beat Tim Wilkerson, and Corey Lee beat Gary Densham. Bruce Sarver, we're going to say goodbye because you better go back and you may be in action here quicker than you might think. We appreciate it.
I bet they're a little nervous over there, wondering where the heck I'm at. But we got to warm up and get ready for our next round. We got Vandergriff, and I'm pretty pumped up.
You got Directv. They're probably watching you.
Yeah, my partner didn't get to make it out, but he's having fun back in California. He's up at Bass Lakes water skiing and fishing. I'm sure he's watching right now. I'd like to say hi to him and his family, John and Donna. But we look forward to the next round. Thanks, you guys, for having me up.
Have a safe afternoon. Okay, here we go. Al Hoffman and Randy Anderson. These are live pictures, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to tell you, these are not from yesterday or any other day. These are right now. The Western Auto car, Randy Anderson. Parts America, really, they're downplaying the Western Auto thing. Parts America, Texaco Haviland car, Randy Anderson.
Well, what a great job this young man has done this year since he came out. He started out with the season absolutely in a total disaster. Bounced off the guardrail twice with 2 different cars and 2 different weekends.
Everybody's saying he couldn't drive. Hey, I'll drive that car. Get that kid out of there. No driving kid. Oh, yeah, and his 5th national event, he wins. And a lot of that has to do with the gray-haired talents of Larry Frazier.
Absolutely.
Al Hoffman, what can you say about Al Hoffman? He's just tenacious. They don't get any tougher. And there'd be a little bit of a hard feelings here, as Al once had the Parts America deal, still carries the paint scheme without the lettering.
I would have to say a little hard feelings is the understatement.
All right, it's a grudge match.
That's what I can call it. A grudge match, and that's cool. Nothing wrong with having a good old-fashioned grudge race.
You know what's interesting, too, about Larry Frazier, the tunes Randy Anderson's car, he's from the real old school. He doesn't really know that much about the computer. He looks at the parts. He reads the top of the pistons and the plugs and the bearings and all those things that a Dick LaHaye can do, and very few others. And he gets computer input from the guys. He read it and tell him what it says, but he's not into that.
No, that's not really his bag. And, there's a lot of us old guys that aren't real good on computers. I mean, we hire the right people to do the job for us to get the information fed to us. I still like having one.
Absolutely. Al Hoffman, first time he has driven since that fiery crash in Gainesville back in March, and carries the scars of Helen Hoffman.
Rather interesting that they did not make the last qualifying session last night, which kind of surprised me. We ran a 5:17 and clicked it off early on that 5:17 run. Did a good job of driving the car, but Jimbo Ermolovich making the final adjustments and telling his boss, get going, roll her off their stage.
I think it's economics. I really do.
It's a real good possibility because this team now is sponsorless, and financially it makes a big difference for every run you don't do.
Putting the linkage on that front pump?
Yes, sir. The front fuel pump on that particular car. Actually, with that particular pump is the pump that we designed at Waterman Racing, and there's an inline pump. There's actually 1 pump in the rear and 1 pump in the front. They make the burnout like we talked about earlier with one of the fuel pumps and then come back and hook the other one up.
the fashionable, trendy Randy Anderson. Al Hoffman, what you see is what you get. Didn't sound real good coming by here. We're going to get a blower into the window. A 5:48 wins it for Randy Anderson at 2:36 as Al Hoffman just instantly overpowers the racetrack. 10:73 at 74.
Look at that reaction time by Randy Anderson. Really good.
That is probably the best that Randy has had. A 4.82 reaction time to Hoffman's .527.
That was not our track dryer, folks.
Here's a replay. Hoffman with the wheels in the air a little bit. He tries to pedal it but can't.
Yeah, when it set the front end down, what it did is unload the rear tires, start to smoke the tires. You realize that Randy was not smoking the tires. There's no way you're going to catch him. Absolutely impossible. And Randy went on for his victory.
But Randy, it sounded like he was pedaling it as well, didn't it?
Yeah, it was definitely mixing him up down here big time. It really sounded, like you said, it really sounded awful. It's amazing, sitting this close to the track like we are, you can hear these engines just fighting themselves coming down the racetrack. I mean, there's been, when Selzy's car came by, it was as smooth and powerful as could be. When they're detonating, boy, you can feel it clear up here in the tower. It's really an amazing fact.
It's kind of... As the body gets latched down over Kenji Okazaki, and the motors come to life for our next pair, it'll be Okazaki against Mark Oswald. Let's go down to the Unk.
Well, down here we got an Al Hoffman that still sitting in the car. Probably a little dejected after that pass, as you said, a little bit of a grudge match, just now coming out of the car. Randy Anderson on a great pedaling job on and off the throttle there a couple of times on the big end. We'll see if we can get to Al here in just a second. We'll throw it back to you real quick.
Okay, thanks. Unk doing a great job down there. Kenji Okazaki and Mark Oswald.
Well, I tell you what, here are two of the best drivers that are in the sport of drag racing. Kenji Okazaki has the most consistent reaction time of all the funny cars. Every single one of them. When they come up against Kenji, they know that they're going to generally be second off the starting line. But Mark Oswald, this guy's got a lot of experience.
Okay, quickly again, let's go down to the Unk with Al Hoffman.
Al, I tell you what, wasn't the round you were looking for, but welcome back, bud.
Thanks, I'm glad to be back. It's just nice to get back in the car again. It shook real hard on that run. Go out there and start pedaling this thing this early. I'm not quite ready for that. But that was Randy's big chance. We'll get him back.
Got a little bit more for next week in Dallas?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll go there. I'm getting better every day, so that's going to be worse for the other guys.
Look out, guys. And that wasn't so much an equipment thing as it was a physical thing. He didn't want to go out there and abuse his body.
Absolutely. When they start shaking the tires that bad, that's what he was talking about the other night. He was so sore after the qualifying runs on Friday night, but still did a great job on Saturday to get the show.
Kenji's been pushing the light so hard, recently he had a red light. That might cause him to back off a little bit. Mark Oswald, the youngest looking 44-year-old you ever saw. Hard work is good for you, apparently. The In-N-Out Burger car out of California. How can they sound that bad and not blow up?
I have no idea.
Kenji Okazaki wins it at a 5:51, 267 miles an hour, and he was, whoa, did he bag Oswald up the starting line by 0.05 of a second.
A 4:36 or 4:36 reaction time.
No, 4:96.
4:96. Yeah. Okay. Our screen's a little bit on the fuzzy side, folks. We'll have a little bit of problems with our CompuLink as far as being able to see the numbers are concerned, but we'll give it to you best we can.
So Kenji Okazaki, that one will need some work, guaranteed.
Great
Kenji leaves first.
Yeah, Kenji leaves first. Both cars make a nice move. At this point, nobody's backpedaled yet. There goes Mark Oswald. He just lifted out the throttle, as did Kenji when he smoked the tires. They both jump back in it. Oswald gets crossed up. Kenji's car stays straight.
Has Oswald been able to keep that car straight? Oh boy, he got really out of shape.
He sure did. Now watch him. See the flames coming out of the left side of the car and now the right. This car is mixing up and detonating real badly. A lot of engine damage on this race car.
It's kind of like fingernails on the blackboard, only 100 times louder when they come by. When they're mixing them up like that.
Yeah, this is a new experience for me as far as hearing that kind of, feeling that kind of detonation.
Incredible.
Imagine what it would be like sitting inside the car.
I can't.
I can't either.
Okay, Mark Oswald, he tried to road race his car to the finish line, but didn't quite work. It's not a slalom, Mark.
Mark, I tell you what, the racetrack's only 1,320 feet long. You tried to stretch it out there a little bit.
Yeah, we're trying hard. You know, the cars really come around good this weekend, and obviously the track conditions changed quite a bit. We were looking for that to happen. I just wasn't quick enough to catch it.
I tell you what, I don't know about anybody else, but a double-double sure sounds good to me right now.
I'd love one.
Sauce only, large lemonade, grill the onions.
Your dad was very much involved with that, as I remember correctly, in the early years of that.
Yeah, he and Harry Snyder that founded the Internet chain were good friends and so on and so forth. But anyway, that's just talking about him, and I feel like I've gained 2 pounds. What do we got? Back under the bridge, we got Pro Stock. Race number 1, round number 1 of Pro Stock. And we're, let's see, it's 2:30. They would have probably run about 1, so we're probably an hour and a half behind. And here's how they'll pair up, ladies and gentlemen, here at the Pennzoil Nationals. Warren Johnson will race Mike Thomas. Jerry Ekman will be up against Pete Williams. The Dodge of Darrell Alderman against the Mopar car, or the GM car of Terry Adams. George Marnell got a great shot at a good finish here. And Bruce Allen. Kurt Johnson against Mike Bell. Powick against Tom Martino. Steve Schmidt will race Ricky Smith. And Jim Yates will find Troy Coughlin in the other lane, trying to lay a hole shot on him, I guarantee.
This is going to be a great round of Pro Stock competition. And now these cars are not going to have the same problems that we've already seen in the top fuel and funny car ranks. I believe that you're going to see these cars run consistent high 690s and low 70s. We have to remember now, the air is not as good as it was the last 2 days. Too much humidity in the air. These naturally aspirated engines really don't like moisture, because moisture displaces oxygen, and that's the one thing these things need, is all the oxygen they can get.
And I'm sure Frank Hawley is taking a turn through the pits trying to get a handle on the funny car story. Is Cap's going to be able to come back? Who's going to get a single if it does? I mean, a lot of things could happen here in that funny car deal, and we'll be paying attention to that as we wait for round number 1 of Pro Stock. And I agree with you. It'll be interesting, too, to see if Warren Johnson suffers any kind of a letdown after all the pomp and circumstance and success of that 200-mile-an-hour run on Friday night.
Yeah,
no?
Not a chance. This guy is such a professional. I don't know of anybody that really fits the word professional any better than Warren Johnson does.
You know, I just was informed by Cindy Harmon, one of our producers, that NHRA, no matter what happens here, is going to try to cut in with the next round of the Nitro cars at 3 o'clock. Even if it's in the middle of Pro Stock Bike or wherever it may be, they will try to come right back with those Nitro cars at 4 o'clock, because they take the longest between rounds. You almost kind of can set your clock by them. Make that 3 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, which would be a little more than half an hour from right now.
And please, folks, bear with us. I'll tell you, this has been a tough day. You know, rain on and off, few oils down. And, you know, and we can't blame the racers for the oil downs and the problems that are happening. The conditions are so much different than they were the first 2 days. It changes everything in these cars, how they react, what they do, and the backpedaling we see. That's the worst thing you can do to keep an engine, to make an engine blow up. They do definitely throw up big time when you have to back in and out of them 2 or 3 times.
Yep, well, you don't do that with the Pro Stock car. You're on your lid. Here is Jerry Ackman, the Checker Shucks Cragen Auto Parts car out of Newark, Ohio. He'll grab the line lock, do the burnout, and slither towards the starting line up against Pete Williams from Alabama.
But it's raining harder where he was from than it is here.
Ooh, scary stuff. And those Pro Stock cars, especially now with this cold racetrack, they did some pretty aggressive burnouts there, quite a ways down.
Did. Yeah, and you know, and they're hoping that some of that heat is left from the last couple of cars that ran down the race course, because it was once again, there was some downtime there. As you remember, the 6th pair of funny cars, we had oil down that went across the lanes, and it took quite a while to clean it up. And they definitely are hoping there's a little bit of heat left on this racetrack. But we'll know real quick.
You betcha. Pete Williams, that's the Firebird over there. He has never won an NHRA National, but he's come close last year. Jerry Ackman has won quite a few, but it's been a long dry spell since the Spring Nationals of '92, and since the Phoenix race of '95, since Jerry's been in a final round. It is so diabolically competitive in Pro Stock. The hours that have to go into finding just anything. Warren Johnson now says, I think I'm making all the horsepower I'm ever going to make. I'm working on my cars. I'm working on chassis and suspension. And the light, the reaction time can be everything. Are they a little rusty from sitting around? Let's find out.
Good incremental times.
Jerry Ekman, unbelievable reaction, 4.3 reaction time, and he wins it with a 6.94 at 198 miles an hour.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's real impressive. With the amount of humidity in the air to run that fast, I'm impressed.
Unbelievable. 7 flat for Pete Williams.
And he ran 197, so a great run by both cars.
Here we go. You're on board with Darrell Alderman, the new Chrysler Corporation, Mopar Parts. Opposite him, from Millers Creek, North Carolina, is Terry Adams in the Gumout Firebird. Dale Ike, who since taking over the reins of this team, it was announced at the U.S. Nationals last Labor Day weekend, but it was a good time after that before he actually was able to get his hands on parts and pieces and start development work. To get Darrell Alderman qualified here, number 4 at a 493, to get Scott Jeffrey on into the final round and on the pole of the Winston Invitational. Unbelievable. Terry Adams, he'd love to. He wish we were saying about him right now.
Yeah, well,
qualified. Just to qualify here, Terry, is huge.
Dale Ike has just done a phenomenal job with these these Dodges. He really had not worked with Dodges at all until this happened.
One thing he hasn't been able to do is get both cars to run good on the same day. Alderman put a little pressure on Adams. Adams put a little pressure on Alderman. Alderman brakes. Gotta get in, Terry. Just in time. It is Alderman with a better reaction time. He is so good, but does he have the power? He does indeed. Alderman, 696, defeats yet another 7 flat for Terry Adams. 198 miles an hour.
Well, I tell you, they're really flying out there. This air must not be as bad as we thought it was.
I don't trust this computer. O's tend to look like 8 sometimes, but that's, I believe it's 198 miles an hour. Up next, Kurt Johnson. Between he and his dad, they own an important part of pro stock history. Kurt was the first into the 6s several years ago, and Friday night, right here at the Pennzoil Nationals, his daddy became the first to run 200 miles an hour, 200.13.
And we must remember, he has a leg on a national record. He ran a...
No, he's got him.
No, I'm talking about his son has a leg on the national record as well. He ran a 489, or pardon me, a 589 with an 8, and that is quick enough to back up a national record. He could conceivably take it away from his dad, but the atmospheric conditions, I doubt.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of academic anyway. Let's see. Thank you, Cal.
Yeah, but the pride doesn't.
You're right about that. That's a good point. Kurt Johnson and Mike Bell. Bell in the near lane. Bell from Asheboro, North Carolina. Bell is in this one. Bell is in this one. But it's Kurt Johnson, the AC Delco Firebird, at 692. Low ET of the round, 197 miles an hour. But how about Mike Bell? 695.
With a better reaction time, it appears.
Yeah, by 300.
419 to a 442. Wow, what a great job by Mike Bell.
He made a one heck of a race with that. You want Warren Johnson? We got Warren Johnson in the near lane. The GM Performance Parts Pontiac.
You folks ask if he can run 200 miles an hour again? You betcha. Don't know whether it'll happen this run, but he can definitely do it.
He can do it. I'm not going to bet on anything. I never bet on the drag race stuff.
Well, the only thing I always bet on is basically the Warren's generally about a mile an hour faster than everybody else. So we've already seen 198. So my guess is he'll run about a 199.10 to a 199.40.
Mike Thomas qualified 16th. That's why he's got to race the pole sitter Warren Johnson. That's how it works. 116, 215, so on and so forth. Mike Thomas, sponsored by the Gumout Products Company. Neat guy. Knoxville, Tennessee. Got a big horse farm down there. Life is good.
Horses, horsepower.
He loves them both. Ooh, Mike, get in there. Get in there, Mike. You're going to get... Ooh, Mr. Rickster was tickling the button. They lead just about together. Warren Johnson and Mike Thomas. It is the professor, Warren Johnson, and he did it again. The crowd goes wild. He ups it to 200.53. Arlene, you're supposed to shoot the scoreboard with a video camera. 688. That makes the record now 688. And 200.53. Those are now officially, those will be etched into the page of National Dragster magazine.
Wow, what a great performance by Warren Johnson. I mean, this is just absolutely mind-boggling.
Bob the Unk has joined us up here at the tower. Been a long, wet day for you down there, huh?
Been a little damp. I tell you what, that is impressive. You were talking earlier, Sid, about how the air is not as good today as it has been all weekend, and he comes out with this.
Yeah, it's just absolutely phenomenal. Just dazzling is what it is. It's hard to believe that anybody can slip up there and step up. I expected to see him step up 1 mile an hour, but I certainly didn't expect to see him, jump up 2+.
Oh man, I'm here to tell you that was probably one of the most impressive runs I think I can ever say I've seen.
Oh, I have to agree with it. I mean, I can't bring up another run of any kind in any class that's more impressive than that.
I mean, knowing what the air has been. Here we go, Ricky Smith and Steve Schmidt off the line now.
Schmidt with a slight advantage.
Win line goes to Schmidt at the other end, 694, 198 by 1,000th of a second.
Wow, what a close over race that was.
Oh, he takes the win over Ricky Smith. It goes 696, 197. Ricky doing what he does best. Gets out on him, and Steve Schmidt had to drive around at the other end. George Marnell, Bruce Allen coming up next. There's Bruce's car, the Slick 50 machine, the Pontiac Firebird out of Texas, the Arlington-based Rare Morrison power plant underneath the hood. George Marnell out of Las Vegas, Nevada. You heard Steve telling you earlier, he's a masonry contractor out there, and absolutely incredible what they can do with this car.
Well, it sure is nice to see Bruce Allen back, because they have struggled over the last couple of years, but boy, they put on a great show down there in Texas. Of course, it's their home state and their hometown, and that's how they'd like to have it be.
Yeah. Bruce Allen a little on the resurgent side of late with the Slick 50 car. See what he's got here for George Marnell. And never had a chance. 693, 197 for Bruce Allen. Marnell is 692.
Wow. A little extra money for the whole shot win.
A little extra money for the whole shot win. Exactly that. 93 beats a 92. Did it with the reaction time. Bruce Allen takes the win. Mark Powell coming up next. He's in the lane nearest to you. The Summit Racing Pontiac Firebird. Up alongside of him, the Mama Rose's car. Tom Martino at the wheel. Tom taking the win down in Houston at our last pay-per-view show. Tom told me earlier this weekend, he says, if I win here again today, he says, I'm starting booking you to all my races.
Can't blame him.
Now coming out of the number 7 qualifying position, Tom Martino, number 10. Of course, everybody in the 6s. The qualified field.
24 or 25 cars, I remember correctly, ran in the 6s, and only 16 get to play.
Yeah, incredible. 688, 200 miles an hour. I'm still shaking over that. Malcolm Martino, about closest to you. Identical off the line, 463 reaction time for Martino. The Powell's 461. Mark gets the win. Cowboy goes 693, 198, 696, 198 for Martino. Cowboy looked like a little bit of a header fire there. He'll have to refire it and blow the header fire out down at the other end. Troy Coughlin, Jim Yates. Now Jim in the McDonald's Pontiac Firebird, closest to you. And Troy over there in the Jiggs car.
He's got his hands full, but I'll tell you, he's a great lever, and you just know that Jim Yates in no way, shape, or form is going to give this kid an inch, so he's going to have to leave on time, or he might get whipped.
If Yates isn't there, Troy's going to give him a real tussle, a lot more than he probably really wants to admit. But Troy is a known lever. I believe this is the car back that they brushed up against the wall out in Phoenix earlier this year. So Troy now back into his own ride. Coming out of number 11 slot, Jim Yates qualified number 6 with McDonald's Dynamax machine. Maybe trouble for Troy. 695, 197. Jim Yates picks up some money. 694 for Troy Coughlin,
Wow.
and 198.
What a surprise.
Won it on a whole shot, picks up a little bit more of that slick 50 money. 0.03 of a second margin of victory down at the other end of the racetrack.
4:29 reaction time to a 4:51 for Troy. That's really, Troy's really off his game, and of course, Jim, that's about as good as he ever does.
That's a real good shot for Jim Yates, and Troy Coughlin, like you said, a little off the game plan with that 4:51 reaction time. Pro stock bike rolling in next. Matt Hines, number 1 qualifier. Laid down a great 7:30. Well, let's see. We've seen the professor go a little bit quicker. How about young Matt here, the Vance and Hines machine out of California, taking on number 16 qualifier Ron Ayers.
Well, you know, the air was good enough for the pro stocks to run 200 point, whatever it was, 58 or thereabouts. These naturally aspirated pro stock bikes certainly can pick up speed in ET. We may see our first ever 20 run as a real good possibility. He's already run a 730 flat, and a 729 is just not that far away. Oh man, he's on one.
729, 184 miles an hour for Matt Hines. First time.
Look at him.
Into
He
the
knows.
20s.
He knows.
Oh, he knows that's a pass. You saw the fist up in the air. Oh, great run for Matt Hines. Sorry I missed Ayers' time there. Got so carried away with the 729 for everybody at home. I do apologize for that. John Myers, Gino Scali up next. Gino, out of Illinois. The Suzuki bike, qualified number 13. John Myers qualified number 4, 738. Here's another runner capable of getting down into the 720s, but John and crew, George Bryce, Jackie Bryce, all the Star Performance gang. John aboard the Close Call Racing Suzuki. They've been fighting it all weekend, taking out a couple of engines in their qualifying laps.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting to see here what happens with John. Myers on the far side of the track. Close call, phone card, Star Racing, Suzuki. Looks like problems for Gino. So John on a single. Working his way down track, takes it through 734, 177, his best lap of the weekend. So struggling, fighting the motors, blowing them up, comes back, and moves to round number 2. Louis Bloom, hi there, welcome to Pay-Per-View.
It's great to be here. I'll tell you something, Matt Hines with a phenomenal performance, 729 in the motorcycle. John Myers the first to break the 40s, Dave Schultz the first to break the 30s. Now Matt Hines in the record books in the 20s, and that's a record and $3,000 from MBNA if he can keep it by the rest of the weekend.
I'll tell you what, the way everybody's running out here, it may be tough.
It's fast. Warren Johnson going 680s. Next up, Gary Tunglet taking on Team Skull, Joey Bartow.
The gang out of New York, Long Island, New York, in the paving business. Joey qualified number 10. Gary Tunglet qualified number 7. Joey in the lane nearest to you. Gary over on the far side. The Track Dynamics Ward Performance Machine.
Bartone.
466 reaction time. He goes 7:49, 178 equals his qualifying lap. 7:52 for Gary Tonglin. At 180 miles an hour, a little bit more speed for Gary, but Joey quicker out of the gate. You can see the 466 to, let's just say it was on over a 6 reaction time for Gary over on the other side.
Bartone's quickest pass ever, by the way, by a couple thousandths of a second.
Greg Underdahl, Steve Johnson up next. Johnson, the Slick 50 machine, out of California, lane close to see the very colorful Steve Johnson. Taking on Greg Underdahl. Underdahl qualified number 9, Steve qualified number 8.
Should be a great race coming up. Steve Johnson backing up the motorcycle, the Slick 50 team. Underdahl with a Vance and Hines power plant. Obviously, they pretty much have the same setup. He should be able to run very quick.
The NCN Communications bike. Good pairing here. Both of the riders qualifying with 7:49s.
Red light start by Underdahl. Automatic win to Steve Johnson. As the Slick 50 team goes 7:44, that's probably one of his best runs ever.
That's his quickest lap of the weekend. 7:44, 180 for Steve Johnson with a not too shabby 4:15 reaction time. Underdahl 7:48, 181. A little bit more mile per hour, but a little quick off the line.
Here comes Hector Arana, number 6 qualifier at 7:44. The Lucas Oil entry ready to take on Joe DeSantis on board a Suzuki. As we continue with Pro Stock Bike.
And it's going to be another pretty good pair. Hector Arana, Hector the Hammer out of Florida. Luxor dealership mechanic by profession during the week. Takes his time off to go drag racing on weekends. And not bad at it. Finished number 5 in the points chase last year. Santa's qualified number 11. Hector the Hammer closest to you, qualified number 6.
Hector's pretty tough with the correct cope horsepower. DeSantis last the stage in the far lane. Blink of the Christmas tree. A good short time for Hector. He's on a good run.
Hector's got it 7:50, 169. Falling off pace a little bit. Joe DeSantis seeing him out there. Clicked it a little early. Don't know if it was problems for the Lordstown, Ohio runner or just knew that it was over with.
Might have hit the rev limiter. That's been a real problem with the bikes this season with the transmissions. Our next pair coming up in a few moments, Pro Stock Motorcycle. Now we have yet to see Angel Sealing run this session, and she's got 730 horsepower also.
Or 720 horsepower, if you will. She just missed by a ton in qualifying. Wes Nyberg up the lane farthest from you, Cape Coral, Florida. John Smith out of Champlin, Minnesota. Qualified number 3, a great 737 out of the Anoka Ramsey Sports Machine. There's John.
They do a great job. They don't have much billboard space. They really have to use all the bike and all the helmet and also the leathers to get their message across. Russ Nyberg, the world's quickest Kawasaki, number 14 qualifier at 7:56. There's the dry hop by Nyberg. He's got some Kawasaki money this season, looking to make a big move in the Winston points.
Nyberg getting a little assist backwards. No reverse, of course, in the Pro Stock bike. A little tough. They've got everything going on inside those power plants as it is.
I've actually seen a funny bike at a Pro Star event with an automatic transmission with a Power Glide 2-speed, just like you'd have in a Super Comp dragster. The only one. Should be a good race. Nyberg and Smith. There's the C&W CycleWorks bike. John Smith in the near lane. Smith with the advantage, no doubt. Nyberg looking to push the tree on this one.
You can make a lot up at the starting line.
John Smith on his game, though. The best 60-foot time this weekend. Should be a good run.
7:46, 178 miles an hour. John Smith takes the win. 7:50, 176 for Nyberg. The better reaction time going to Smith. He just kind of held on. The 60-foot time, a 1:10. And we've seen some pretty good 60-foot times out of these Pro Stock bikes all weekend.
Well, we just saw John go down track. Here's younger brother CJ. The Pete Briggs Racing Kawasaki for CJ, qualifying number 15. He's in the lane closest to you. And Angel Sealing finished number 7 in Winston Points Chase last year, only making half the runs, half the races. She started her year off in Denver, went on to win at the Keystones last year in Pennsylvania, runner-up at Topeka. Star performance. Close call. Suzuki, she qualified number 2 at a 7:31. Here's another bike, Lewis, capable of going into the 7:20s.
Yep, she could actually run quicker than Matt Hines and set the record. Obviously, we have a couple more rounds to go left today. C.J. Smith getting set to go. The Pete Briggs Kawasaki, one of 2 Kawasaki's qualified this week, and we just saw one of them lose a few moments ago. We'll see if C.J. has better luck. Anjo won $10,000 just a couple weeks ago, courtesy of Winston, at the Winston Invitational. Nice hit for her team. Angel Sealing, C.J. Smith, both bikes moving into the beams. Angel pretty tough on herself when it comes to reaction times, always looking for a good light even. In a race, she's definitely favored to win. And look at the star bike make power. 7:33, 181. C.J. Smith, a 7:53 and 177. Angel looking pretty tough this weekend.
Look a little tough this weekend, but I tell you what, she also had her hands full there in mid-track. If you were watching real close, you could see that bike moving around on her a little bit. They have to use all of their body weight to try and control those motorcycles, keep them pointed in the right direction. And Angel, at 98 pounds, doesn't have a lot of body weight to shift around with, but she is proving to be an absolutely excellent pro stock bike campaigner. Here's our other lady, Stephanie Reeves, out of Gorham, Maine. Part of the Dave Schultz race team. She qualified number 12 at a 7:53, and guess who she's taking on here in round number 1? The boss, the Winston champ, the Sunoco Dynatech Suzuki of David Schultz out of Fort Myers, Florida. Yep. Dave qualified number 5, though, at a 7:40. Has not been the weekend, I think, that they wanted out of that bike. Been struggling a little bit of late, too.
Yep, his game plan this weekend was to get down the racetrack, make some consistent runs, not try to beg parts. And right now, Stephanie getting ready to go. We have a camera on the side of David Schultz's fairing, and I think he's going off the racetrack.
He is going off track, and that is not what they were looking for this weekend. You can see him there moving around behind Stephanie. It'll be one of the team bikes going around number 2 for David Schultz and Greg Koch. David wanted to get down the racetrack this weekend.
Let's watch Stephanie against the Revelmatter, picks up the front wheel. Making the gear changes with the 5-speed.
757, 177, and a little bit smoother down track for her than was Angel, but not the performance, not the power. 757, 177, and David Schultz out again in round number 1. Tough year for the guys from Sunoco and Fort Myers, Florida, and Dynatech. Not the weekend David Schultz was looking for. Looking to get back into that winner's circle.
He's been thrashing all weekend with the help of Greg Cope. Tough break. Next, I'll go with Comp Eliminator. First of our French and local sportsman categories coming up today, with Larry Perkins and Alan Stanfield ready to do their burnouts.
Comp Eliminator's been a little bit tough this weekend. First round, we had 6 cars step into the CIC bucket, if you will. John Freck stepping into it hard and heavy, went 67 under to salvage a first-round win. Of course, those of you that follow Comp Eliminator Racing know how tough that's going to be on them. Right now, Larry Perkins taking on Alan Stanfield. Stanfield lane closest to you, the Super Modified Pontiac. Perkins giving chase in the Cutlass. Handicap Racing. Win's going to go to Stanfield, 918 at 150 miles an hour. Your number 7 qualifier, Larry Perkins, out of here. 799, 167. Stanfield, 516 on the reaction timers. Got out with a 10th on Perkins off the line to begin with.
Larry Perkins losing in the D-Alter class with a 7-second run. That's the second time that's happened this weekend, with Sal DiPaolo going out, the runner-up at the Fram Nationals with a 798.
Dave Northrup out of Pennsylvania, the ISC Racer State machine. C-altered car, 96 Olds Cutlass, over on the far side of the racetrack. David Strauss Jr. out of Morganville, New Jersey. the Forever in Debt 93 Olds Cutlass. And I tell you what, in Comp Eliminator, it's sometimes referred to as Spindall Eliminator. That's probably the closest, truest name I've ever seen on a race car, Forever in Debt.
Asked Dave Strauss a few moments ago, what about going up to Pro Stock? He says, well, it costs about the same amount of money. And I said, well, you'll stay Forever in Debt. Runs a Steve Schmidt type race car. It's got an Ingalls motor to be exact, taking on the Oldsmobile for Northrop, a good lever, and so far he saved his index.
Red light for Dave Northrop. David Strauss Jr. will move on, and he's already clicked it. He's going to coast on through the Forever in Debt Oldsmobile. He'll be back for round number 3 a little bit later on. This is, of course, round number 2, competition eliminated.
David went to the semifinals at the Federal Mobile Drag Race Series at Rockingham just a couple weeks ago. He's having a good run so far this season.
There's a guy coming off a win earlier this year on the division level, Ian Landy. He's out of Ohio. Also took home the Best Appearing Car Award. He'll be up in the other lane. This is Jerry Hemmingson on your screen right now out of Concord, North Carolina. Car very familiar to me, being from Division 5, a former Todd and Alan Patterson campaign machine. This is the Jericho Racing transmission car. There's Ian's machine, A Street Roadster. Sitting right smack dab square at you in your living room. Isn't it great?
Qualify number 3 at 63 under. His index is still 872, preventing the CIC. Jerry Hemmingson at 830. He saved his index also in round number 1 when he received a foul start as a gift. Like that Roadster, that's a beautiful car.
It is a gorgeous car. Hard runner, too. Jerry Hemmingson clicking it early, seeing the red light. Ian Landis goes 490 red, hands the wind over to Hemmingson, and there's your number 3 qualifier out of here in round number 2. And Hemmingson, coming from the number 27 slot in a 32-car field, works his way one more round. Jericho transmission machine circling its way off the far end of the racetrack, and I'm sure he's got a smile on his face. Boy, here's a tough pair. A couple 200-mile-an-hour Comp Eliminator cars. Jerry Haas qualified number 9, 594 in that gorgeous 63 Corvette. He'll be up alongside Kim Smith out of Dallas, Texas, the Double B altered turbocharged 97 Ford Probe. Qualified number 1, 65 under the index. Gone 705, 709. And I tell you what, on that 709 pass, I got to see it. He had to shoot coming out at 800 feet. It was fully blossomed by 1,000, and he still ran 709. Incredible performance.
Kenny Deltweiler builds the power plant out in California. Kim Smith, the chassis builder. Jerry Haas, also a chassis builder, a battle of chassis builders right here. Runs a Schmidt motor. He had a big win in round number 1, but they seem to be pushing Haas's car off the starting line. Might be having some problems.
Not a good sign when you see the crew grab the windshield post and start pushing backwards. So Kim Smith, coming out of that number 1 spot, gets a freebie here. Doesn't have to step on his index any at all. The Angelaz Vermed 97 Ford Probe. It'll be a single to round number 3.
He's already actually hit his index by 0.08 of a second, so this will definitely help him out this weekend.
And then again, maybe it is not problems for Haas.